I'm about to destroy your entire spiritual journey and save your sanity. Jung discovered that 90% of people who start awakening end up more psychologically damaged than when they began. In the next 3 minutes, you'll learn why your spiritual progress is actually psychological regression, and Jung's 5 antidotes that took him 10 years to discover. If you're lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering, why do I still snap at my family after 2 years of meditation? You're about to understand why. That voice in your head saying, I'm a spiritual fraud, isn't your enemy. It's your first clue that Jung's psychological traps have you exactly where they want you. And here's what's at stake. Without understanding these traps, you'll spend the next decade cycling through the same spiritual crisis, getting more lost each time. Jung's method wasn't therapy, it was psychological archaeology. He didn't heal patients, he taught them to befriend their demons. But here's what Jung confessed in his private journals. I feel like I'm drowning in a darkness of my own making. The deeper I dig into the psyche, the more monsters I unearth. Jung literally went clinically insane for 6 years while writing the Red Book. If the founder of analytical psychology couldn't escape these traps, what makes you think your morning meditation will? Jung discovered that spiritual awakening follows a predictable pattern of psychological self-sabotage. Think of it like this. Your ego is a con artist that learned to speak Sanskrit. Here are the 3 cons it's running on you right now. The identity con. You think you've transcended your old self, but you just gave your ego a spiritual makeover. Same person, better vocabulary. The shadow con. You think you've accepted your darkness, but you're still running from it every time it shows up as road rage or jealousy. The perfection con. You think you're heading towards some enlightened endpoint, but Jung proved this destination doesn't exist, and chasing it will drive you insane. Here's what Jung figured out after 6 years of psychological hell. The goal isn't to become perfect, it's to become friends with your imperfection. In the next 17 minutes, you'll get Jung's 5 psychological peace treaties. Not to fix yourself, but to stop the civil war in your head. Warning, these aren't feel-good spiritual band-aids. Jung called them dangerous medicine because they'll force you to face something most people spend their entire lives avoiding: the truth about who you really are. But before Jung gives us those keys, he wants us to understand exactly why we're trapped in the first place. Comment yes if you've ever felt like you've been betrayed by yourself. Meet Lisa, marketing director, 28, 2 years deep into spiritual practice. She's got the meditation apps, the chakra charts, the crystal collection. Last Tuesday, her mom asked about her dating life. Lisa exploded. "Stop trying to control my life." The exact same words she screamed as a teenager. Lisa texted me, "I've been awakening for 2 years. Why did I just turn into my 16-year-old self over a simple question? Am I a complete fake?" Here's what Jung would tell Lisa. You're not fake. You just fell for the first psychological con. Visual sequence every 3 to 4 seconds. Professional Lisa, meditation setup, crystal collection, family dinner, teenage Lisa screaming, adult Lisa screaming, identical pose, text message on phone, Jung's understanding face. Lisa's story breaks my heart because she's not broken. She's just caught in the first trap that catches 99% of us. Jung warned about this decades ago. The ego never dies, it just puts on new clothes. What you think is your new self is just your old self wearing spiritual vocabulary. This is why you still react the same way even though you've learned so much. You're not doing anything wrong. You just fell into the first trap that almost everyone falls into. Jung called this the false transcendence trap. You think you've moved beyond your old patterns, but what actually happened is your ego got smarter. It learned to use words like mindfulness and consciousness while keeping you exactly where you were. The symptoms are brutal. You start questioning every decision you've made. You feel like you're living someone else's life. Your past achievements suddenly feel meaningless. And that devastating question haunts you. Who am I really? Sarah, a 34-year-old marketing director, captured this perfectly in her journal after starting meditation. I realized I've been living for 15 years like a programmed robot. I don't know what I like, what I hate, or even what my real voice sounds like. Now here's where it gets really uncomfortable. Have you ever been terrified that you might actually be a monster? Meet Michael. Software engineer, married, 2 kids, never hurt a fly. Last month during a team meeting, he had a vivid mental image of strangling his annoying colleague with a USB cable. Michael called me at 2 a.m. I'm scared I'm going insane. What if I actually do something? What if my wife finds out what I'm thinking? What if I lose my family because I'm turning into some kind of psychopath? Here's what's really at stake with shadow crisis. You don't just fear your dark thoughts. You start believing they define who you are. You begin isolating from loved ones because you think you're protecting them from yourself. Your relationships crumble not because you're dangerous, but because you're running from parts of yourself that desperately need attention. Michael's terror is real, but Jung would tell him something that might shock you. Those dark thoughts aren't proof that you're evil. They're proof that you're human. Jung wasn't just a psychiatrist. He was a psychological detective who solved the mystery of human darkness. His breakthrough discovery: your shadow isn't trying to hurt people. It's a traumatized child who never learned healthy ways to express pain. Jung's revolutionary insight: every impulse to harm others is actually a cry for help from the parts of yourself you abandoned in childhood. Think of your shadow like a feral dog that's been locked in a basement for 30 years. When it finally escapes, it's not evil. It's starving for attention, acknowledgement, and love. But everyone runs away because it looks scary, which makes it more desperate and aggressive. During the 6 years Jung spent writing the Red Book, he had conversations with the darkest parts of his psyche. He called these parts shadow. Everything about yourself that you refuse to acknowledge. This is where 40% of people give up on their spiritual journey entirely. Because nobody prepared them for what Jung called the shadow crisis. The symptoms are terrifying. You suddenly feel rage toward positive people. You have urges to hurt people you love. Dark ideas emerge from nowhere. You feel like there's another person living in your head. But Jung's insight was revolutionary. Shadow isn't something you can eliminate. It's part of you, formed from every bit of anger, pain, and disappointment you've suppressed since childhood. Jung worked with a patient named Hermann, a model teacher who started having nightmares about killing his students. Instead of suppressing these thoughts, Jung guided Hermann to dialogue with this dark part. What Hermann discovered changed his life. His shadow stemmed from being abused by his father as a child. He'd been suppressing rage for 30 years. When he learned to negotiate with his shadow instead of fighting it, the nightmares disappeared. Jung's method was called active imagination. But it's different from what most people think. You sit in darkness for 10 minutes each night. You visualize your shadow as a specific character and have a conversation. Why are you angry? What do you need from me? How can we work together? Jung warned us, don't try to destroy your shadow, learn to befriend it. Because this dark energy, when tamed, becomes your most powerful source of creativity and authenticity. But here's what nobody tells you. Even when you think you've mastered your shadow, Jung has one final surprise waiting. Are you drowning in your own self-improvement? David. 5 years ago, he started therapy for anxiety. Like peeling an onion, each layer revealed another issue. Childhood trauma led to abandonment issues. Abandonment issues led to relationship patterns. Relationship patterns led to career self-sabotage. Career problems led to money anxiety. Money anxiety led back to childhood trauma. David texted me, "I feel like I'm performing surgery on myself with no anesthesia, and every cut reveals more problems. I've become addicted to fixing myself, but I'm never actually fixed. I've turned self-improvement into self-torture." Here's what Jung discovered about the infinite healing trap. We mistake healing for collecting insights, but insight addiction is just another way the ego stays in control. You become a spiritual hamster running on a wheel of perpetual self-analysis, mistaking motion for progress. David hit the third and most insidious trap, what Jung called the infinite healing trap. This catches even people who've successfully navigated the first two traps. Here's the brutal realization. You discover that your entire spiritual journey might just be another elaborate game your ego is playing. Jung wrote near the end of his life, "The greatest danger of the individuation path isn't meeting your shadow. It's thinking you've completed the journey. The symptoms are soul-crushing. You feel empty after awakening. You realize you still react the same way in stressful situations. You doubt whether your entire spiritual journey was an illusion. And that devastating question, was that really all there is?" Jung called this the paradox of self-realization. The deeper you go into understanding yourself, the more you realize how little you actually know about yourself. Jung himself confessed in the Red Book that he felt absolute despair when he realized that 10 years of exploring his unconscious had only revealed infinite layers of mystery. He wrote, "I felt like a fool who believed he could dig to the center of the earth with his bare hands." This is where the final 30% of people abandon their journey, not because they lack tools, but because they despair at the endless nature of growth. But Jung discovered something that changes everything. The solution isn't to complete your healing, it's to learn to live with what he called sacred incompleteness. Jung discovered something that sounds insane but works. Stop trying to fix your broken parts, start dating them. Think of your anxiety like a protective bodyguard who's been working overtime for 20 years. Instead of firing him, Jung says, "Thank you for keeping me safe, I see you. Can we negotiate your working hours, your depression?" It's not a malfunction, it's your soul's way of saying, "This life isn't working." Your anger, it's a boundary-setting expert who never learned indoor voice. Jung's permission slip. You don't need to evict these parts of yourself, you need to become a better landlord. Instead of trying to become perfect, Jung invites you to become whole, which means embracing both your light and darkness, your strengths and your flaws. So how do you not just survive these three traps, but actually transform them into sources of power? That's exactly where Jung's 5 escape keys come in. But here's the thing. These 5 keys won't make you perfect. They'll help you stop fighting yourself. Jung spent his final years distilling everything he learned into these 5 practices. He didn't call them healing tool. He called them keys to sacred imprisonment. Because sometimes the goal isn't to escape the cage, it's to make peace with it. Key 1. Shadow therapy session. Forget mapping your shadow. Jung discovered something more powerful. Become your shadow's therapist. Here's exactly how. Every night for 10 minutes, sit in the dark and imagine your shadow as a specific person sitting across from you. Maybe it looks like your angry father, maybe like your rebellious teenage self, maybe like a wounded animal. Ask these exact questions. What happened to you that made you so angry? What are you trying to protect me from? What do you need me to understand? Sarah tried this for 1 week. Her shadow appeared as a 7-year-old girl covered in mud, screaming. When Sarah asked what happened, the girl said, "Nobody listens to me unless I'm perfect." Sarah realized her perfectionism was actually this little girl's survival strategy. Every night before bed, sit in the darkness for just 10 minutes. Don't try to meditate it away. Instead, speak to your shadow directly. How are you feeling today? What do you need from me? What are you trying to protect me from? Sarah, the marketing director I mentioned earlier, tried this for just 1 week. She told me, "I realized my shadow wasn't trying to sabotage me. It was a 5-year-old girl who was terrified of being abandoned again." When you stop treating your shadow like an enemy and start treating it like a wounded child, everything changes. Key 2, the parent you needed letter. This exercise reunites you with the part of yourself that's been waiting 20+ years for someone to understand. Step-by-step process. 1. Find your most triggered emotional response: anger, fear, shame. 2. Ask, how old do I feel when this happens? Usually 5 to 12 years old. 3. Write a letter as the wise adult to that exact age child. 4. Start with, "Dear your name at age, Chama X. I'm your future self and I need you to know." Michael wrote to his 8-year-old self, "Dear Michael, at 8, I know Dad scared you when he yelled. You learned to be angry because that's how Dad showed power. But you're safe now. Your anger protected you then, but I can protect us both now." After one letter, Michael's violent thoughts toward colleagues disappeared. His shadow just needed acknowledgement. Here's what you write. "You were so brave. I understand why you're angry. You had every right to feel that way. I'm here now and I'm not going anywhere." Michael, the engineer with the dark thoughts, wrote his first letter and immediately understood why his shadow was so violent. That 5-year-old boy had been holding all his rage for 30 years, waiting for someone to acknowledge his pain. Jung's final insight was this: when you stop trying to fix yourself and start embracing your entire human experience, the beautiful and the broken, the light and the shadow, you become a calm storm in a chaotic world. And that's when the real magic happens. And that's the real magic Jung discovered. When you stop trying to be perfect and start being whole, everything shifts. Jung spent 80 years studying the human psyche, and here's his final message to you. The goal was never to become perfect. The goal was to become real. Your anxiety isn't a bug. It's a feature that kept your ancestors alive. Your anger isn't a flaw. It's a boundary-setting system that needs better training. Your sadness isn't weakness. It's your soul's way of honoring what you've lost. You are not a project to be completed. You are not a problem to be solved. You are a human being worthy of love, especially the messy, complicated, gloriously imperfect parts. Lisa stopped apologizing for her emotions. Michael befriended his dark thoughts. David got off the healing hamster wheel. They didn't become perfect. They became free. Comment real if you're ready to stop performing perfection and start being human. Comment free if you're done with the exhausting work of fixing yourself and ready for the peaceful work of accepting yourself. And if this video helped you feel less alone in your beautifully broken humanity, share it with someone else who needs permission to be imperfect. Because the world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real ones. And if this helped you feel less alone in your journey, share it with someone else who needs permission to be human. The world doesn't need another perfect person. It needs you. Beautifully, authentically, courageously you.